So here are a few of my favorite templates, and most of these I've made up. Anyone that has the colors is something that I made up. And I use colors to help guide students where the numbers need to go. So for example, we often talk about converting an improper fraction to a mixed number. And so this is an improper fraction. And so we would tell the student, okay, we know we need to do division, and we're taking 21 and we're dividing it by 4. And if we really needed to, we could set up that part of this template would already have maybe these colors in it, where we would know that the top square would be black, and then this bottom square here would be blue. So if you need to, you could always start off there. So again, we're taking a nice little improper fraction and we're converting it. So we always set up using long division, and we ask ourselves, how many times can 4 go into 21? And we know it's 5. I want to actually be in black. Give me a second. And then 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract down, you would get a 1. And the students understand how to do long division, but they're not really quite sure what to do with this, which is again why we have the colors. So we always start off with colors and say, okay, well, the whole number is 5 because we know that 4 can go into 21 5 whole times, and that this is the remainder. So we take the remainder and we put it over what we're dividing by. And we can write that in words, we can say it in words, but because kids with learning disabilities, they need to hear, see, and touch things, you want to try to engage all the learning styles. And so templates are a really good way to do that, so that they now have a guide that they can follow, and hopefully after hearing or seeing those steps written down multiple times, they can follow along. And then as they progress and they feel more confident doing this, you can take the colors away and you can just have everything in black. And then what that does is it triggers them to say, oh, this is the type of problem I'm doing. Remember, dyslexics tend to misfile away information. Also, it takes us a longer time to find the correct information. So just a visual stimulus of what the template looks like often tells us where to start. Dyslexics have a very difficult time figuring out where to start a problem because we're jumping around in our brains so much trying to find that one specific point. A template is a trigger, it's a prompt, and it tells us enough information so we know where to look in our brain. Okay, so here's another one. So the most recent trend in order finding GCF and LCM is to do something called a cake method. And I highly recommend that students that are weak in math get a multiplication chart out. Don't use calculators, don't tell them the answers, just get a nice multiplication chart out so they can visually see it and they can touch it. So I tell my students, okay, we know we want to find the greatest common factor in the LCM. So we start off with this. And I have them look along their multiplication chart, and I always tell them to start with the smallest number. Where can they find 14 in the same row? Like, okay, I found 14, Mandy. Perfect. Okay, in that row, does it also have a 28? If it doesn't, we move on. If it does, then we ask if it has a 56. So they're going along their multiplication chart. Sometimes they're using a ruler to track it, and they're looking for which row has all 3 numbers. And that row will be a 7. So we put the 7 here, and then what you do here is you ask yourself, well, how many times can 7 go into 8? Or you can think of it as 7 times what is 28. It depends how the student thinks of division. 7 times what is 28, or how many times can 7 go into 28? And you always repeat the same question. Once you learn the phrasing that they prefer, you repeat it every time. So how many times can 7 go into 14? 2 times. Or 7 times what is 56? 7 times 8 is 56. So now you have this row, and you're going to ask, okay, well, do I have a GCF? Do I have, or not really a G, but more like a common factor? So you do the same thing. You have your student go across in a multiplication chart, start with the smallest number, find a row that has 2, and then have them look to see if that row also has a 4 and an 8. And the only row that's going to show 2, 4, and 8 is 2. And I do tell students that sometimes if the number is even, if all 3 numbers are even, 2 will work. So if they don't have access to a multiplication chart, if numbers are even, we just plug in 2. So now we're going to do the same thing. 2 times what is 4? 2. 2 times what is 2? 1. 2 times what is 8? 4. And then there's nothing in common. If you have them do the multiplication chart, the only row that shares a 1, 2, and 4 is a row where you are multiplying by 1. So most students, after a while, they can figure this out. And again, you want the squares, you want them to line things up. Dyslexics don't always track things correctly. We don't line things up properly. And again, it's just a nice, good roadmap. It's a good structure that we can follow. So we've done this. Now what, right? So what I did is, again, I color coordinated. So to find the greatest common factor, and I would always ask, okay, guys, if I need to find the greatest common factor, am I going to try to do the red box or the purple box? After I took these away. So I would kind of always start off with the most. And then as the student progressed, I started taking words away. So to get the greatest common factor, we know we need to multiply the 2 blues. Okay, so therefore the greatest common factor is 14. And then to find the least common multiple, so we would need to go to find that purple, we need to take the blues and the greens. So again, that's where the color coding's coming in, is it forces them to do the same thing in the same order every time. So we know that the least common multiple, well, that is 14, and this is 8. So whatever 14 times 8 is. And let me do it this way, because I don't do horizontal multiplication that well, because that's not how we teach it. Here we go. So this is a really good resource. And as I said, as the student gets more comfortable doing this, then you take the colors away, you take the words away. Maybe you just eventually just give them this top portion. Okay, the next one is subtracting fractions with borrowing, which can be very, very difficult. So I always start off with ones that already have a common denominator. And I say, okay, well, can you do 1 minus 5? Nope, that's not possible. So then we're back to the color. So I said, okay, well, we need to add whatever this one is here. And so then we copy over. We take, okay, well, that 3 was there. Oh, wait, hold on. I forgot to borrow. So we would actually, to add the 7 here, we would actually have to cross out the 3 and make it a 2 to add the 7. It's also called regrouping in more of the Common Core terminology. So now we would write the 2 because that's near the purple box. And then 1 plus 7 is 8. And then we would just copy the blue. And then this is black because you're just recopying everything. And now you can actually subtract down. You know that 8 minus 5 is 3. And we're keeping the 7, and 2 minus 2, well, that's just 0. So this is your final answer. And again, hopefully you're getting the message that as your student becomes more and more confident in doing this, take the colors away and just keep the boxes. Okay, so the next one is converting a mixed number to an improper fraction. And a lot of times we do this in our head. We don't really show the student how it's done. And so this is showing, because we're showing the multiplication and we're showing the addition. And when I show them, I actually show them the math. So when I say 2 times 3, I actually write the answer here. And then I say, well, what's 6 plus 1? 7. And then, okay, well, this is blue, so we need to match the denominators. So we do that. And whatever order that you do it, you always want to do it the same. Some students just want to match the beginning. They want to say, all right, that's easy. I don't have to think, right? Let me plug in stuff that I already know without thinking. Okay, well, now I actually have to do math. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Change the colors when they become more comfortable. Because all you really have to do is print them out and then copy them or just print them out on a grayscale printer. Okay. Now, the templates really started with long division. Neither one of these are mine. These are readily available already. And what I like about starting off with something quite simple is you already have the subtraction built in and the arrows bringing stuff down. And you have boxes that, again, columns. Dyslexics don't always line things up properly, especially if a dyslexic is also dysgraphic. Again, it's called comorbidity, that if you're more likely to have a group of diagnoses. So dyslexics often are dysgraphic. And so again, that's back to just difficulty lining things up. So we could do this one. And then your goal is to get to more a general template where you lose the arrows, there are more just random boxes, and the student has to figure out what to do more on their own. And then this allows for multiple types of division. Here, you can only start off with one digit and have two. Here, numerous options. So let me show you when I teach this, what this looks like. I do start off with steps, and my steps are not overly technical. I know that this is the divisor and this is the dividend. I understand that. Students do not. So that's why we call it an outside number. And again, we can always color coordinate. So I usually start off with, okay, here's your outside number. So I'm going to line that in the color. And then my first digit, I'm going to choose a color. I don't like red because our brain just tends to get alerted a little too negatively with red. So I'll do something like this. Okay, and I'll say, okay, well, how many times can 2 go into 3? And again, that phrasing they seem to prefer. How many times can 2 go into 3? 1 time. Okay, now we have this wonderful thing called a top number. So then I will underline that, or I'll box it in the green. Okay, so now we know the top number and we have the outside number. So we want to multiply them. And sometimes I do this because that's how you kind of want them to think about it. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, now we're on to step 3. We subtract down. Step 4, bring down the next digit. That arrow's already built in. It's fantastic. And then this is usually where they get quite confused because they got this first step. So now what? Divide bottom number by outside number. So this is the new phrasing that I did come up with, that my bottom number is this. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. So we put that here, and I tell the students answers always go on top. This is your answers. And then we multiply the top number by the outside number. So this is our next top number. And if we want to erase and just kind of keep things a little bit clear for the student, you can. So we could do this. Usually they kind of already have a knack at this point. So then 9 times 2 is 18. And then we subtract down and get 0. And I always make them do that because I want to show them now they know to stop. Because that's another problem with problems like this is students don't know, are they done? They think they're done, they're not sure. Most of the time that they are, but they're really worried that they're not, and that anxiety kicks in. And then just to note that when you have a problem like this, most of the time we are going to start off with it looking like this, but then you want to start introducing it more in this manner. You want to start off with 38 divided by 2, have them be able to convert it to this. And then you want to make sure that they understand that 38 divided by 2 is 19, that 19 is the answer. And believe it or not, I'll have students that do long division. I'll go, okay, well, what's 38 divided by 2? I don't know. Well, because they don't understand that's the answer. They're so focused on the steps that you do want to take a step back and make sure they understand that they found the answer. Now, there are a lot more of these, so please go ahead and click on the link that's also included in the post to all my current templates that are in Word documents that you can print out and use at home. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Have a good day, everyone.